Well, welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. It's great to be in your home again and have you here listening to us. We have a few issues to bring up today, and I hope they interest you as much as they seem to be interesting us. Your feedback to our show has been greatly appreciated. I'm CJ Ferry.
And I'm Bob Chip Camara. Welcome to the show. And
today we're going to start out with some of the lighter stuff, and then we'll get into some of the heavier stuff that's happening. If any of our stuff is light, let's put it that way. I think I'm going to start off right now with the Fluff-A-Nutter sandwich, as I'm going to call it, from the Herald News and the Morton Middle School. The article that recently appeared in the Herald News was all Fluff-A-Nutter, I think. I mean, it was just fluff. There was no hardcore information on what's going on at that school. It's some behavior problems that we're addressing and da-da-da-da. They're not talking about the drugs, the alcohol, the assaults on the teachers, the assaults on the police officers, the assaults on the students. And on December 9th, there will be a former teacher from Fall River, Kristen Ford, who will be addressing the school committee if they allow her to. And I say that very emphatically, if they allow her to. They have attempted, both the mayor and Meg Mayo Brown have attempted to contact Ms. Ford and have her come in and meet with both of them. She has been apprised to not meet with both of them until after the school committee meeting on the 9th. And as such, they sent out pretty, shall we say, discouraging letters on her being able to speak. That she can only speak on items that are appearing on the agenda, and that if there are complaints about any way that the schools are being handled or managed, they won't be allowed. They need to be addressed with the school or the individual personally before it's brought to the school committee. But Mr. Mayor, Ms. Brown, they have been attempting to address it with the school. And guess what? They get the answers, you're a little too sensitive, all right? The administration at the school doesn't want to hear it. So the parents and the former teachers and this show have taken it into our hands to say, you will listen. We've made it available to the various news sources in the area, including Fox, which wants to interview Ms. Ford immediately. And we are getting commitments for the entire press corps to be at the school committee meeting. The great viewing ball of my gypsy sources say that the school committee or the mayor will tend to move this school committee meeting from the failed Henry Lord Middle School, which is closed, to the Cuss or one of the other schools. Because if it is going to be a public display and it's going to be carried by the press, they don't want to look too bad. So we are possibly seeing this meeting location moved, but at this point in time, it is located at the Henry Lord Middle School. But we want you there. But I think you need to realize that we are having a major problem in the school system. We're hearing reports now coming in from other schools in the city, including at Durfee and some of the other schools throughout the city. I've received a non-verifiable report at this time of a teacher being injured at one of the elementary schools. Once I can verify that report, we will bring you some more information. But what's going on in Fall River?
Well, I think we may never know. And I'm not sure if the insipid reporting from the Herald News is due to the lack of sufficient information given to them by the schools and by the city, or if it's just poor reporting. It may be both A and B. It may be option C. But there seems to be always in this city an attempt to cover up anything that's negative. And if we do that, we never fix it. And the fact is that, as usual, the school committee is going to try to deal with things behind closed doors. They try to suppress public input. And they try to basically not answer the questions that need to be answered. And I will remind them again, and I read this quote before. This is from the Massachusetts Constitution. It says that whether legislative, executive, or judicial, these people are the substitutes of the people and are at all times accountable to them. So I urge all of you to be there at December 9th, and if they won't allow them to speak, we should, as a community, make them allow them to speak, because it's their obligation to tell you and I and every parent what's going on.
You know, it's scary that we're getting to a revolution type situation in Fall River, that the only way we can get our elected individuals to answer our questions and be receptive to our input is to almost, shove it down their throat. And, I feel like we're back in 1776 and, making the battle on Bunker Hill here. I mean, it's scary, isn't it?
It is. It's something that's getting even worse as we go along. There appears to be a concentrated effort never to address a problem in Fall River. If we have a problematic school, we close it. If we have poor scores, we move people around, because figures don't lie, but liars can figure. The fact is, we evade issues, and we can't. We cannot evade the problems. The city is deteriorating. We look at the population decrease, and we look at the ridiculousness of what's happened in the city council about tax rates. There seems never to be a realistic forum at the city council where we look at this city and say, these are the problems, let's meet them head on, address them, and fix them. All we do, this is like Alice through the looking glass. They see Fall River through rose-colored glasses. I think CJ and I are going to get these big, giant glasses and wear them at our next show. Maybe we'll see Fall River the way they do.
It might be a good idea, but it's interesting because I was just getting the vision of Fall River as an ostrich plantation.
Yeah.
And you're walking down the streets and all the ostriches have their heads buried in the sand, because it's true. It seems that we just like to hide everything. But interesting that you should talk about populations and tax burdens, because Mark Monroe Dion, again, we go back to the Herald News. A lot of people don't like Mark. He has some very scathing remarks, but Mark Monroe Dion wrote a very interesting article recently about Thanksgiving and how people come back to Fall River for Thanksgiving and then they leave, and they're here for 4 days and they're gone. And it's true. And a lot of people commented on that, both on Facebook and on the Herald News website, that said, the minute I can get out of here, I'm gone. And some people commented, I got out of there and I never looked back. And it's true. The kids that go to our school system know our school system's failing them. And when they get out of the school system, well, let's be realistic. All you got to do to graduate Durfee is get a 60 average. So it shouldn't be that hard to graduate Durfee with a 60. And believe me, every good college knows that. So if you're graduating with an A, you're really good, according to those colleges, because you only have to graduate with a 60, which for everyone else's standard is an F. But once they go to college, they finish up those 4 years of school or 6 years of school, depending on what they're doing, and they leave. They get out of here because, you always call Fall River the city of hills, mills, and unpaid bills. And we do know it that way because it truly is. But a lot of people who look at Fall River from the outside, they don't look at it that way. It's crack, it's heroin, it's drugs, it's crime. And when you come in at number 48, in crime, why do I want to live there?
Well, it seems that the only people that see a different Fall River are the city council and the mayor. And that, I think, is our major problem. But the other problem is that for some unknown reason, we continue to put the same city councilors back in office. I mean, it's ludicrous when we look at what's going on here. Mark Monroe Dion can see people that just visit Fall River. The rest of the world looks at the statistics and says, this is not a place I want to be or anywhere near. And the people who do come back for a chow mein sandwich and a chorizo and chip sandwich, and they want to leave. Once they've had that and taken care of their palate, they're on their way back to where there's, to communities where they actually deal with problems and they actually have jobs that they can earn a living at. And it's almost, if it wasn't so sad, it would be comical to watch the city council debate.
It's true. They don't even know what Robert's Rules of Order are there. I've heard a motion made, a second made, and then they're calling for a vote, and then all of a sudden they stop, and they're all going to be heard again. You put a camera in that city council chamber, and all 9 of them have to say something. They sit there and go, blah, 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 blah. They're not saying anything, but they're on camera. And, it's the problem. They all have something to say about nothing, or they're repeating everything somebody else has said. But one of the things that Mark brought up, to get back to this brief story, is that they come into Fall River, they spend some time with the family members that stay here because they either can't leave, don't want to leave, or they're too old to leave. And those are the 3 major reasons why people stay here. But people say, oh, they're going to communities that they get paid much more money. They're actually going to communities where they're making less money than they would make in Massachusetts. But as they say, they're making money, because if they stay here, they're not making anything. So they are making more money than they'd make if they were staying here. But they come back here and they say, after Thanksgiving, it's Friday night, they knew where to go. They went to the bar that they knew all their friends from high school would be at getting drunk, because there's nothing better for them to do. Isn't that sad?
Well, it is. And what's more tragic is the fact that there's no movement to change this cycle of disaster that we're in, because it seems that the people who run this city refuse to believe it. They bury their head in the sand and they play the ostrich government until they play the Chicken Little government, because then they pull their head out of the hole and they look up and say, uh-oh, the sky is falling. We're going to get fined. We're going to lose the SAFER grant. We have to clean up, otherwise we're going to have more bills. And it's government by crisis, and the government by crisis is caused by a government of inaction.
It is, truly. And now that you mentioned the SAFER grant, there's another segue into another story, and that being that New Bedford got the SAFER grant money. And I made comments on Facebook and elsewhere that, well, look who got the SAFER grant. What are we going to do now? And Eric Poulin, lame duck, because he's out of office, so he can now speak freely, and he still does it. Oh, well, we got to figure out what we're going to do about not having the SAFER grant money. Shouldn't you have figured that out when you first took the money? I mean, that's the big deal. And many members of the fire department, and actually members of our staff today, told us just before taping that the fire department said, oh no, we're going to get that SAFER grant. I firmly do not believe that our fire department is that naive. I think they know that SAFER grant money is not coming. So what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen? You're going to hear the mayor go to the city council, or Sean Kadim go to the city council and say, if we don't move for Prop 2.5 override, we are going to have to lay off the fire department. But I think that there's another sneaky plan in process, or maybe in process, to get adequate staffing but not hire any more people, and also possibly lay off some people. And I think Chipper might be a little more familiar with that little sneaky plan.
Well, yeah, there have been rumors that they're going to attempt to make them work a longer work week, but give them a very hefty raise. Obviously, that's speculation at this point, but let's get back to the SAFER grant. The SAFER grant is a grant to make, because it's an acronym, actually make it safer in a community. It's not to fund public safety. It's to make it better. The fact is that we are the laughingstock of not only Massachusetts, but the laughingstock of the nation. We have a fire department that's funded virtually 40 or 50% by a government grant. If we look down the road 15 miles to New Bedford, we see a city that's scrambling, looking for money to hire firefighters. And they got a SAFER grant. But before they got that SAFER grant, and they secured that grant, they know it's only temporary, they were looking to move money, to free money up, to pay to keep firefighters on the job. And what does Fall River do? They reduced the number of firefighters that they were paying for by 14 in this year's budget. So, I mean, how ridiculous do you think we look to the federal government when we say, help us make our city safer, and we lay off people that with the money that we use? I mean, let's face it. The only reason we got these SAFER grants is SAFER grants are political. During an election year, they don't want to upset anybody. They want to spread some money around. But the fact is, what do you think? They laugh at us in Boston because of the way we run the city, and they laugh at us in Washington. Because what other city in this nation asks the government for a handout while they're laying people off with money that's already in their bank so they can give somebody else a pay raise? It's absolutely absurd.
It's fruitless. It really is. But also, and we hear all these, these shenanigans, and we see them happen, and we talk about them all the time. We've been talking about them for years. But we can't have this type of thing keep going on. I mean, we're doing it with the police department right now. We've got grant after grant after grant coming in, and that's funding the police department. And all the great toys, bells, and whistles are wonderful things to make the police department look good. And now they're saying, well, now that we have them, we can sell them or rent them to Somerset and Swansea and Westport. Why? You got them. Why can't they? Why do they have to get yours? It doesn't work that way. And look at that wonderful shot spotter program they had. If you throw a firecracker out on the street, it's a gunshot. I mean, how wonderful are these programs if they're sending officers to gunshots from a firecracker or a cap gun going off? So we have to look at what we're really doing. I understand that we're trying to make Fall River better, but let's do it responsibly. And that's the key. We have to be responsible. When we're looking at issues in Fall River, we always hear the same thing from the politicians all the time. And I'm going to say them, and you're all going to say, yeah, we hear that all the time. We hear jobs, taxes, and public safety. Those are the three things. How many years have we heard those three issues? How many years now?
Oh, forever.
I mean, we never changed the issues. We never changed them. And have the job issues gotten better in Fall River? No, they've gotten worse. Although the mayor turns around and says, when I took office, it was 19, and now it's 12. Do you know why it's 12, Mr. Mayor? And you know it, and I know it. It's 12 because the other 7%, they ran out of benefits, so they got dropped from the counts. That's how it works. They didn't get jobs, so let's be realistic. So the economy's not getting any better. But it's strange how the economy's not getting any better in Fall River, but if you're a Fall River employee or a Fall River contractor, your economy's getting much better. Because you don't have a job that really does anything except maybe appear on the radio once a week and attend neighborhood meetings, and you get a $20,000 a year raise. I think that's pretty good. And you have a job that you can't keep up with the regulations, and you can't keep track of what's going on in your own department, but you get a raise too. And you're doing a wonderful job of doing nothing, so why not give you a raise? So we gave out all these raises even after a budget's approved, but we give out all these raises, and then we say, oh, we need more money. And then we bring forward that we're going to do the tax factoring, which just happened recently. And what happens? We give the businesses in Fall River, which are very few, a tax break so that the property owners, that's me and Bob and you out there who own your own home, we got to shoulder more of the burden. Now, granted, it's only 0.01 more, and you think, well, that's not a lot. But you know what? Ray Mitchell says it's only $2.50 more. Well, Ray.
Quarter.
A quarter, that's right. Let's get it right. $2.50 here, $2.50 there, $2.50 here. It adds up pretty fast, okay? And that $10 could buy somebody a prescription or could buy them some food. And it's very easy for you to keep taking money, and we have nothing to show for it. And I have a problem with that. And when you turn around and keep doing that, there's a serious issue. How come your budget has to keep going up, yet you can get $3 million, actually $3.4 million certified as free cash? That means you overtaxed your taxpayers. Do you consider the fact that $3.4 million in cash was overtaxed on the people? I don't think so. But wait a minute, that's not where it came from. Where did it come from? It came from the $2 million in overtaxation and the money not spent by the fire department, quoting Sean Kadim. So,
well, that's correct. But the reality is that we have a government that defers everything, and the people, their theory is that the truth is what you can make people believe. And the fact is that between the Herald News and the City Council, they make everybody believe that everything's great, we're on the path, and we're doing well. But Ray Mitchell said it's only $10, but it's $10 for that. It's $10 for the water meter, for the base water meter. It's $10 to paint houses in the historic districts. It's $10 here, it's $10 there per quarter. And by the time you figure out what's happened over the past couple of years, it's $50 a quarter, which comes out to about $200 a year, which some people, that means the difference between paying their mortgage or eating. And the reality is that we don't have people in this city that can afford it. I was reading the newspaper the other day. It was tragic. It was talking about two young girls who were in their apartments and they didn't have food for Thanksgiving. And this is what you have. You have young people with no jobs or have to work 2 jobs to barely make enough to feed themselves. You have elderly people who are on fixed incomes. And you have a city council that's oblivious. You have a city councilor like Poulin, which, you know, I think he destroyed his entire credibility and the image he worked so hard to create in one of his final acts by saying we should drop it even lower to 1.5 for businesses. I guess his new boss, Bobby Karen, would be happy by that.
Yeah.
But the fact is, I'm going to be on my rant very shortly about this, but the fact is that what everybody else has 1.7 fact in New Bedford. Why do we have to go down? And number one, who is this going to help? The small businesses in Fall River depend on people that go in and spend a few dollars. So you're going to take it out of the people's pocket who spend the money, and you're going to reduce their costs by a minor sum. You're actually hurting their businesses because the way you encourage small business is to give people money to spend, and if they're paying attention, they don't realize that 80% of our school children are on assisted lunch programs or free lunch programs, that the average income in this city is $24,000 for a household, which is 1/3 the state average. I mean, what the hell do they think they're doing? You think that dropping that for the businessmen helps? It helps by putting more money in the pockets of the people who live in Fall River.
Yeah. And one quick note on that before I go for your commentary. It came up before the state Senate on the wage increase, minimum wage increase, and it would take the minimum wage to $11 in 3 years, $1 a year. Senator Mike Rodrigues felt that that was too much money and that it wouldn't benefit anyone. It would hurt business in Fall River. It would hurt Massachusetts. And so he said no. He did agree that we needed a minimum wage increase, but he voted at 75 cents a year for 2 years, which would have brought the pay up to $9.50 an hour, and then he would lock it out. Meanwhile, the original bill called for $1 a year for 3 years, and then locked the minimum wage to the price index. So as it went up with inflation, so would the minimum wage. But he said no. I guess because Mike is a business and he doesn't want to pay the minimum wage. I mean, that's
well, yeah, and also Mike makes sure that he buys his liquor in New Hampshire when he's on his way back, and he circumvents his own taxes, and obviously he gets a deferment because he drives over X amount of miles to Boston, and he gets tax breaks. And he's just like the congressmen in this country who don't live by the laws that they create that punish us.
Yep. And now, Chip, we want to hear your commentary for the week.
Oh, well, okay, here we go. The fact is, my theme for today is let's get the mayor and the city council's head out of a place where the sun doesn't shine. Let's begin to look at the reality, okay? I touched on a SAFER grant, which, number one, as I said, we're like schizophrenic. We're begging for money from the feds while we're not using our own money to fund firefighters. So do we really want firefighters on the job, or do we just want the feds and the taxpayers to override 2.5 so we don't have to? We look at our city council. They're talking about knocking down the taxes on business when our business tax is comparable to all the local area communities. So why do we need that? It's more important that we give the people who live in this community money to spend in these small businesses. And realistically, how many small businesses do we have? Most of them are niche businesses. I mean, the city council and some of the things that are said there are just mind-boggling. I encourage all of you to watch these city council meetings and see and listen to the foolishness that comes out of the mouths of these people when it comes to SAFER grants, when it comes to tax adjustments. Eric Poulin wants to drop it down to 1.5. What is that going to encourage? What is that going to encourage? It's going to take more money out of the pockets, the empty pockets of the people who live in Fall River. And it's going to make it better for his buddy, who owns a ton of big businesses, so it's going to reduce his expenses. You know, I keep hearing about Matuk and this and that and everything, and the fact is the man makes $95 towels. Who in Fall River can buy a $95 towel? He's here because he's getting a tiff. He's here because they're treating him like the king of Siam. And when he's done using and abusing Fall River, he'll disappear like the rest of them. And that is something that I guarantee, because he doesn't care one iota about the plight of the people who are living in Fall River. And this is who we kowtow to. These are the kinds of people that our city council and our mayor cozy up to. They don't care about you, they don't care about CJ, and they don't care about me. They continue to raise your taxes, increase your expenses, while everybody and all their friends get pay raises and all their friends' businesses get rich. And more people move out of Fall River. And soon, we'll have nobody left. CJ?
You know, you hit the nail on the head as usual, Bob, and it's scary to think that that's the way Fall River is. And, you know, you have to wonder, what's it going to take to change the outlook? Well, it's going to take a revolution. The revolution's at the ballot box. But the problem is that no revolutionaries show up. 24% of the electorate show up, you know, the people who can vote, you know, only 24% of them, and they don't even know who they're voting for. You know, they go in and they say, oh, yeah, you know, Joe Camara is my sister's brother's best friend, and, you know, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And, yeah, I heard the name Linda Pereira before, and I heard the name of, you know, whoever before, and that's how they do it, you know. And
you're right, and I will add something to my commentary. This is my message to the city council and the mayor. It's a quote from Abraham Lincoln. You cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today. Remember that the next time you try to pile equine excrement on the people of Fall River at a council meeting.
I love it. And on that, I thank you. We'll see you next week.
Have a good day.